Hey guys, I'm Jeremy, and here's a trip I did on the Colorado Trail recently over the weekend of Juneteenth, so that's mid-June. I did the first 3 sections, so that's about 40 miles over 2 days. I started away from Denver at section 3 and then went back to where the trail starts. I'm all about the gravity and the downhill. Obviously, it's still super challenging, but there is more downhill going that way. So I thought the foothills would be kind of mediocre compared to like the areas really far west, which I haven't biked all the areas far west, but I have hiked out there a bit. But this foothill area was super nice. I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of nice scenery and a pretty cool ride. So I'll show some footage of the trip and then I'll give some commentary and advice at the end. So I did this trip on a Sunday and a Monday over Juneteenth weekend. I started away from Denver, right in between where section 4 and 3 start. So to start from the end of section 3, you'd go west on the 285 towards Bailey for about an hour, and then you go south for about 25 minutes on a dirt road where you get to the trailhead. There's a decent sized parking lot, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal if you're heading out that way or leaving your vehicle. So from the road, it's a little bit uphill, of course, like most roads or rivers, right? You have a little bit of an uphill, but overall, you're kind of up on a plateau or a ridge, so it wasn't too bad. There weren't too many people out there. I guess I saw maybe the whole first day I saw about 15 people. The first area, you're going through a bunch of forests. You do pass a few dirt roads a few times, so if you did have issues or you needed some support, it shouldn't be an issue for someone to come up there and help you out if you needed something. There's been a ton of rain in general in 2023, so I knew water wouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm sure in other seasons it's a little bit tougher. I also assumed the water quality would be a little bit better, and it was in a few spots, but overall it wasn't super good, so I would definitely bring out a filter. I didn't bring a filter on this trip. I figured if I drank like 30 cans of Coors crap water every week, like, what's the difference between a little bit of cloudy water, right? I'm sure I'll survive. There's a ton of areas to camp. I think if you have like the guidebook, it'll only mention a few spots, but I mean, there's so many spots you could camp, especially in that second and third section. When you're coming into the last 10 miles of the second section, there was a big fire in most of that area. So it's super wide open. And actually, there's no water there, too. So from Deckers Road to the Platte River in section 2, there's no water. So if you're biking, it's not too bad because you go faster. But obviously, if you're walking, it takes probably 3 hours. So make sure you have enough water. And then because there was a fire there, which I'm not sure when that happened, maybe a few years ago, it's all exposed. So if there's huge lightning storms or something, you're pretty exposed. So make sure you get up early and get through that section early in the day. And to be honest, it actually looked kind of nice without the trees in a way, because you could see in the distance much further, right? When you're in all the forest, kind of like a green tunnel for the most part. You do get areas where you get some nice views of like different things from now and again, but that open area actually was kind of nice. Like I said, I assumed it would have been kind of mediocre, or just kind of more like the Appalachian Mountains, like green rolling mountains. But there's a lot of cool like rock outcrops and spires and different things on the tops of a lot of mountains around. So I thought it was really interesting in that way. And most of the riding was pretty good. Like, you could do 95% on your bike, I would say, maybe even more. Now, the bike I used was pretty mediocre. I mean, I only had front shocks. I didn't have rear shocks. It's super heavy. It's an old giant bike. So it's a solid bike, but it's definitely not good for something like that. If you could get rear suspension in a nicer bike, I would definitely do that. So with that being said, you can bike most of the way, but I did walk a lot of sections. Probably half the day I was walking, because there's many areas where, you know, there's kind of a steep downhill. I'm not going to fall off or risk it, right? And then same thing with the uphills. The uphills are sometimes steep enough where if you come up to a root or some rocks, like, I'm not going to try to bike through it. I'm just going to get off and pull the bike. So no big deal. So yeah, if you could get a better mountain bike, it's easier. But if you don't have like a great one, it's still doable in a 2-day trip. Could you do it in one day? I think it's possible, but you know, 40 miles is still a long ways. Like, even when I'm on tarmac, 60 miles in the mountains is a pretty big challenge. So 40 on dirt with roots and rocks and stuff, it's definitely possible, especially if you get up super early and maybe get there at night. But your bike could break down, you get flat tires and stuff. So I would recommend doing that in 2 days. And I think you'd enjoy it more too. The first evening, I passed that clearing and I eventually came to some trees and I camped out there. There was plenty of areas. The bugs weren't too bad. I mean, I think in the East Coast and more humid areas or by lakes and stuff, you'd get more mosquitoes and like black flies, for instance, in certain parts of America. But they were definitely out. They weren't like killer. I didn't bring any DEET or bug repellent, but I would bring some out because they were a little agitating. The last section I did, which is actually the first section, was probably the toughest. From the Platte River, you go up about 4 or 5 miles, and then you start making your way downhill most of the way to Denver, or to Chatfield Park where it starts. But it's definitely steep going downhill in some areas, so I walked quite a bit of that. I saw quite a lot more people that day because, of course, you're near Denver. So the first day I saw maybe 15 people. The next day, as I was closer to Denver, I probably saw like 45 people. If you could only do one section or one area, I would say section 2 and 3 is a little nicer just because less people and stuff. But section 1 was still, you know, it still had some cool views up there. And when you go down towards the end, you're on a dirt road towards the South Platte River. And that's just downhill on a dirt road basically until you get to the end, which is next to Chatfield Park. Which Chatfield Park's actually a pretty cool park. If you haven't been over there, there's several different lakes. It's a good spot to either go camping or hang out on the weekend or walk your dogs. I brought my friend's dogs out there a couple times and it's a really nice spot. So yeah, overall, a great trip. I'd recommend it. I actually do tours out here too, so if you ever need support, I'll probably try to make some kind of product where I do like a 1 or 2 day trip and I could, you know, help you out with some support along the way, or drop you off at section 3 and you can take 1 or 2 days back or whatever. So I'll put that link below. So anyway, I'd recommend it, and I hope you enjoyed this video and it was beneficial for you. I've got a lot of other things on my channel about many other things around the world, like living in China, biking around the world, hiking the Appalachian Trail, fishing in Alaska. I've got a lot of nice advice and things if you're interested. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.